What's up, guys? Doug Polk here, and today we're going to talk about the day where I lost $100,000 while I was streaming on Twitch. Opening up under the gun here. And we're going to call re-raise here under the gun. Guys, give me your energy. Before we get started, keep in mind this is a $102,000 tournament. It is the highest stakes tournament to ever be played online. Our hand begins with me opening it up with ace-9 suited from under the gun. Definitely a standard open. We're going to open all of our suited aces here as a bunch of other even weaker hands. The action then folds to Mustafa Kanit in the cutoff, who has 8-7 suited. Now, one of the problems here in the cutoff is if you always 3-bet with hands like 8-7 suited, you're likely going to be bluffing a bit too much. It is a kind of reasonable spot to 3-bet bluff given the opener stack size. I can't really 4-bet unless I commit my stack, so I basically have to jam in order to re-raise my opponent. In spots like that, you get a more attractive situation to 3-bet, so I like mixing in a play with 8-7 suited here as long as he makes sure he doesn't bluff too much. He re-raises me to 3.3 thousand here, and the action folds back to me. Now, with ace-9 suited, I think we have a pretty clear call given our pot odds, given the situation, given how strong our hand is relative to a lot of our hands. So we call, and let's take a flop. Okay. See what happens. Gonna go for the check call here on the flop. Going for the check call on ace king 6. The flop comes ace king 6, which is definitely one of the better flops you can hope for with a hand like ace-9 suited. We flop top pair, and if our opponent had a hand like queens, jacks, or 10s, we've moved into the lead. And also there were some hands like king, queen, king, jack we're ahead of, as well as a few suited connector type bluffs like jack 10 suited or 8-7 suited. We are behind hands like ace queen, ace jack, and we're pretty much dead against hands like ace king, and probably actually dead against hands like aces and kings, but those hands aren't too likely compared to all the other types of hands my opponent can have. I check over to Kanit, and now he decides to bet around 3.3 thousand, and I like this play. It's worth noting that if the board is a little lower or a little more draw heavy, this could be a reasonable hand for him to check back, because if you get check raised all in on this flop, it really sucks for your flush draw. On a board like ace king 6, however, the player that opened is not going to have a check raise range. The reason is because I do not have those really strong hands like aces or kings or ace king, or at least not very often, so I'm not going to raise with any of my holdings here on the flop. So this allows you to bet some more draws like 8-7 suited and not have to worry about getting raised, so I like Kanit's play. Now with ace-9, really we have only one option, and that's call. We're probably looking to put our stack in on some later streets, but we're going to start off with a call here on the flop and see what develops. Checking the turn. All right, guys. I'm sorry. The turn comes an offsuit 5, which is one of the best cards I could hope for outside of an ace or a 9. This card doesn't complete any draws. If my opponent has a hand like a flush draw or straight draw, they've still bricked. And yeah, it puts a couple more backdoor straight draw hands out on the board, but those aren't too likely given the cutoff 3-bet. So I check over, and now Kanit decides to jam. So what I'm thinking here in this spot is what are all of my hands? What can I have here in this spot, and what am I folding? Well, I'm certainly going to fold some hands like king queen or king jack suited or king 10 suited. Gonna let go of those. I can also have some hands like queen jack or queen 10 of spades. I'm not too likely to float those hands without the flush draw or backdoor flush draw because frankly, I'm not going to be able to float too much out of position here on the flop. So I'm going to fold some kings. I'm going to fold a few queen jack, few queen 10 suited. And then after that, I'm also going to fold some flush draws. If I have a hand like 10-9 of hearts, I'm going to fold. And realistically, even if I had a hand as strong as queen jack of hearts or queen 10 of hearts, I'm going to have to let those hands go too, because while I'm getting close to the odds that I need, the ICM value of my stack, if I bust versus if I get there, doesn't really justify calling in this situation, and I'm probably not getting the direct odds I need anyway. It depends a little bit on his range, but in general, I'm probably not getting the odds anyway. So if we also fold aces in this spot, we're going to allow our opponent a really profitable opportunity to bluff us here. We kind of have to call whenever we have an ace. And yeah, that means sometimes you're going to just get stacked by ace king or ace queen or ace jack. Certainly all hands he could definitely have. But he could also have some hands like queen jack, flush draws, jack 10 suited. And maybe in some ways having a 9 is a pretty good card for us to have. Because we don't block any of the potential bluff hands our opponent could have. Now, a queen or a jack are maybe kind of neutral. I wouldn't say card removal plays too much of a role here either way. But the main point is this. Sometimes even when you're in a high stakes tournament and you have a hand that you know if you're beat, you're dead, and you're going to get sent packing, you still have to make the right call, even if sometimes you're up against a monster. Lord have mercy. We're going to call in. Here we go. We have ace 9. Godspeed. No ace king. No ace queen. So I go ahead and decide to make the call, and I see my opponent has 8-7 suited, which, I'm happy he's on a draw, but he does have an extremely good draw. He's going to stack me here if there is a 9, a 4, or a heart. I do have a 9, which is good for me, but I'm going to have to dodge those cards if I want to survive here in the tournament. Hold! Why? All right. What are you going to do here? We got in there. And we didn't hold. Thanks for joining me for this little walk down memory lane. I'm going to go through a couple other notable moments the stream has had over the next week or so. And of course, if you want to tune into the stream, you can do so at Doug Polk Poker on Twitch or check the link in the description below.